Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. They say ignorance is bliss. I say they're wrong. I've had an accident yesterday. Well, go back in time, probably 3 years or so. Out in the front garden, there's very little soil beds. It's mostly gravel beds. That's what my mum decided to do. It's her house, and over the years, those gravel beds have built up quite a bit of silt and stuff, underneath the stones. So they are capable of growing things as long as they don't mind dry conditions. Well, quite a few years ago, I threw a couple of packets of seeds of wild flowers. I thought let's just have a little splash of colour, and whatever grows grows, and what doesn't. And yeah, we had quite a good display the first year, and the second year it was more like what had self-seeded. Most of them were annuals. In fact, I think they were all annuals. But yeah, it was nice. But some of the plants perpetuated themselves and regularly self-seeded, and obviously liked the conditions. But yesterday I decided to tidy the front garden. There's a type of plant out there that sort of grows 3 foot tall and has green flowers on, and the bees love it. So I've sort of always left them there. But this year, a lot of them came up right on the path edge, and Postman Pat was having a job to get to the front door. They'd grown so big. So yesterday I decided, right, we'll pull them all out, because they're very shallow rooted, because, there's a membrane, and then, And as I said, ignorance. I didn't know what those plants were until I started cutting them up to put them in the recycling bin, because they were too big to go in whole. And this milky sap came out that was a bit sticky, and I thought, I've seen this before. They must be a type of euphorbia, and I thought, this sap can burn. This is not nice stuff. I've come across this before in my past. And so basically, I washed my hands and then did my best to keep the stuff off my hands, and got the job done. And this milky sap stuff, it like sets. Once it's released and the air gets at it, it turns into like a latexy, sticky stuff. So like, it was a hell of a job cleaning it off my secateurs, because it all got sticky. Anyway, I cleaned my hands off and everything like that, and had a sweep up, and I looked round. I thought, quite pleased with this. And then about half an hour later, my eyes started burning, and it got worse, and it got worse to the point where I virtually couldn't open my eyes, and my eyes were streaming, made my nose run, and I was in a state, bad state. And I'd already arranged my lift to the Orchid Society, and I didn't have to drive. So I thought, it's a good job, because I don't think I'd be driving very sensibly, because I have to keep screwing my eyes up because they hurt so much. So I probably wouldn't have been able to go if I didn't have the lift. Anyway, I went. There weren't many plants bought in. I was chatting to people. A lot of people have struggled getting blooms this season with the heat. So there weren't many plants there. And because I was trying to deal with the coach trip, I didn't get a chance to film. There wasn't much there, so it wouldn't have been much of a video anyway, although there were 3 lovely vandas growing in tall glass vases with all the roots contained in there. Chatting to the person who owned them, they did the typical waterculture or semi-waterculture, filled the vase up, leave them to soak for a while, tip the water out, let them dry off, and repeat as necessary, and they were growing well. Anyway, the talk was marvellous. It was about orchid collecting in Malaysia, on all the little islands and places where the guys stayed, and it was an absolute brilliant talk, and I missed a lot of it because I'm sat there with my eyes screwed up, trying to mop them dry. So I look this morning like I've been out on a stag do for 3 days. The morning after look, where your eyes are all puffed up and screwed up. Now, today it's reduced to a mild stinging, and not all the time, but my eyes are still watery, and all I can think of is that as I was using the secateurs to cut the pieces up to put them in the recycling bin, there must have been very fine misty spray coming off where the secateurs, you know, dug into the plants, because I was very, very careful not to touch my face while I had any of that stuff on my hands. Now, as far as burning is concerned, my hands are pretty tough. So although I got some on my hands, there was no burning effect or anything like that. But I did get a little bit, about 3 or 4 inches up the inside of my wrist, and that started to sting, so I had to get that off pretty quickly. But it looks like I managed to get some in my eyes, and it certainly wasn't off my hands, so it just must have been the spray. So this morning, now I can see again, I looked these plants up, euphorbia. This is pretty serious stuff, because the milky sap in some plants is mildly toxic. In others, it's extremely dangerous and highly toxic, and can have quite blistering burning effects on the skin. Exasperated if your skin's in the sun as well. Apparently that has a major effect. So these plants will now be eradicated from the front garden. They will have self-seeded, so I'm going to get little seedlings coming up, and they can, as I see them, they can just get pulled out and chucked in the recycling bin with my face staying well away from them. I don't ever want that again. That pain was extreme. I had visions later on in the afternoon of going blind. I mean, I tried washing my eyes, but it just wouldn't, I couldn't do anything with it, basically. Anyway, today we're down to mild stinging now and again and some watery eyes. So as far as the video is concerned, I'm watering the mounts today, properly this time, and I'm going to have a quick look at each plant as I get it down to water it, and it'll need to be a quick look because there's an awful lot of mounts. If it looks like it's getting out of hand, I'll split it into 2 and post the other one on another time. But yeah, that's all I need to water today, so let's get on with it. I also took out this book from the library last night. That must have been tucked away, or I'd have seen it before, and obviously grabbed it, as I do have a lot of these. But as orchid books go, it's relatively recent. This is a reprint done in paperback rather than hardback. That was done in 2006, so it's not ancient, and I think its original publication was 2000, so it's not ancient, so it shouldn't be too far out of date. It's like an encyclopedia of dendrobium species, split up into their sections, although a lot of those will have moved by now and some new sections have been created. But there's a reasonable paragraph on each species and a picture, so it's not bad. I'm going to use this as a reference and just recheck the information on the dendrobiums I've got. Those that are doing brilliantly, there's no need, quite honestly, but any that are not doing as well as I think they might be able to, then I can have a quick look in here and then cross-reference this with a couple of sites online and average them, and like one does. But yeah, it's not a bad book. I suspect, having a quick look at the paragraphs on each plant, there's an awful lot of replication, you know, where somebody's just cut one paragraph off, pasted it into the next paragraph and changed a couple of words. There's an awful lot of repetition in there. But if you think about it, it's a massive genus, and if you're talking about the care for each plant, the care for a hell of a lot of the plants is going to be the same. So it is repetition. But a little bit of reinforcement for me, some casual reading. And I haven't got to take this book back for a long time because next month it's our show, so there is no library, so I've got 2 months with that. So before I need to remember to take it back, or you get fined if you don't return them appropriately. The library's free. You just help yourself to the books. They make a note of who's got it and when you took it out, and when you take it back, if it's late, I think it's a 10p fine or something like that, so it's not extravagant, you know. You could almost keep the flipping book and just pay 10p a month to sort of hire it. Anyway, I'll have a look through that sometime. Right, I can whiz along this row before I even start watering and get these out the way, because they'll be all over the place in a minute, dripping. These are my Dendrobium lodigesii kikis that I took off the main plant and mounted a while ago. Roots are pushing on. Some of these have almost doubled in size since they were put on the mount, so they're coming on. This is Dendrobium Fleckery, I'll get there in a minute. This is an Aussie one. This one got scale a while back and slowed it up a bit, and its latest new growth is not quite as tall as the previous one, but nonetheless it's still not a bad growth. And as I'm going round today, everything's had the treatment. I'm looking for signs of movement. I mean, the adult scale, the limpet sort of scale, it's difficult to tell whether they're alive or dead. I mean, if you look on that cane there, you can see the scale under that sheath. Let me just see if I can do this. It's easier to show. Yeah, see, they are under there. Now, in theory, these plants were dunked, so those sheaths were absolutely soaked. So in theory, these should be dead. Do they just wipe off easily? Yes. Yeah, so I think we're probably okay, but there will be a repeat treatment down the line. This is the main Lodigessii. These are the new growths this year, so they're pushing on nicely. This is still not a large plant. It's still got plenty of growing to do. This is the little one that came from Alberto in sunny Italy, and this is Dendrobium, oh God, Lychee nostrum, I think that's pronounced. A genuine miniature, tiny little thing, but it does seem to be growing. It does seem, I mean, there are some new growths showing on here, so it's coming on, but you know, it's never going to get big. This one is Tetragonum, and latest growth on this is quite a bit bigger than anything else before. So, you know, this one's coming on, and it's grown quite a few roots right down through the moss and out the bottom and out the top. So that one's coming on nicely. That was out of the big box, I think. That's my Orangus fastuosa, doing nicely, looked at not long ago. This is Dendrobium moniliform variegata. It does have slightly variegated leaves, nice sort of creamy yellow edges to them. Two latest canes on this are good, and this has produced an amazing root system this year, all round the back and everything. So that was a struggling plant for a little while, but it seems to have pulled up this year dramatically, and these two canes should bloom. Whether that will be this year or next spring, I don't know, but those two canes should bloom. It's bloomed before. This is Orangus Mr. Sidii, a non-bloomer so far. I have to just keep my eye on that. Looking at reference pictures and things like that, I still think, although that's growing well and has smashing roots and everything, I still think it's quite a young plant, so maybe that is wishful thinking. Maybe next year. This is Bulbophyllum sycamensi, and this is pushing out new growths all over the place. And so far, that's all it's ever done, is push out loads of new growths. And one day, one of those new growths might be a spike. Growing well, but never bloomed. So that's that little row. Right, so we'll whiz along the Tolumnias. There's several of these have got no tags on, but apart from one which is a no ID, I do know which ones are which, but I haven't got round to putting tags on them. Oops. Oh, good job they're sturdy. This one's got no tag on it, and I'm not sure whether this is the no ID hybrid or whether one of the tags that have fallen off. But with the number of new growths on that and the root system that's pushed out, that's not far off pushing a spike out, I wouldn't think. The new growths are almost up to full size now, so that should bloom soon, and then we'll find out. The one who's just descended to the floor, good job these things are sturdy. This is Tolumnia peach, and the growths on this are heading up towards full size now. Extensive root system grown this year, so obviously the Tolumnias didn't mind the heat, but it was a matter of keeping them hydrated. That's one of my favourite Tolumnia blooms when that does get round to blooming, but we've got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 new growths on there, so potential for several spikes maybe together. So that's that one. I'm going to put that somewhere else. The hook's too big to go over there, that's the problem. Excuse me. This is Jarak Flyer Black Magic. This one was in bloom. This has got a stonking new growth coming up now. The two growths at the front are the latest ones, and the one on the right did actually bloom. You can see the base of the flower spike. This is the latest growth coming on, and another good root system coming on that one. It didn't have a good root system, now it has. This is another one with no tag, so waiting on the blooms for this one. Two good strong new growths pointing downwards there, and another two, or maybe even three, coming up the top there, and again nice extensive root system pushing out on that one right round the back of the mount. So that one's coming on. The two oldest fans don't look too good, but I had that period when all of my Tolumnias were going downhill fast and had to be sort of recovered. Eventually those older fans can be trimmed off, tidy the plant up a bit, but they've still got some roots on at the moment, so there's no point in taking them off now. Let's wait for the plant to get fully established first. So that's those, and then the smaller ones down here. Now, although this one, I know this one's got no tag, but this is the two-tone one, the one that got singed. It was in bloom for so long, and it was put in a position where the bottom part of the plant was getting virtually no light, so that I could enjoy the blooms, and the top part coloured up quite dramatically. But this has actually got a spike on it again. This is Golden something Sunray, I think this one's called, but that's produced a spike quite recently out of the latest growth. Yeah, so I mean that one's doing okay when we work out what it is. This is the one that was recovering. So in previous videos this was like a single fan with a tiny little growth at the base. Well, there's now two new growths at the base, and the growth pushing up through the middle of the plant, plus an additional little growth at the base of that one, has actually got a spike and will bloom soon. And that is Jarrac Flyer Red Butterfly. So those buds are probably only about a week away from opening now, so we should have some Tolumnia blooms soon. And the last one, this is a miniature. This one doesn't grow very large. Been in a state of recovery for a while, but now recovered. It's now got a plenty good enough root system for a plant that size, and the new growths are pushing on quite nicely. So that's the Tolumnias. This is Sophronitis cernua, or Cattleya cernua, a miniature, mat forming type growth. Doesn't grow, it grows outwards rather than upwards basically. And this one's having a bit of a sulk, reason unknown, but I'm going to go and do some work on this one, because it could be that in its natural environment it's a cooler grower and the heat would have stalled it if that's the case. But it hasn't produced any new growths for a while. Following its very, very good blooming last time round, it's done nothing since. So I'll class it as resting, because that's all I can say about it at the moment. I mean, it's got a good root system, well attached. I mean, this thing's wired on. Those wires could just be taken off now. It's firmly attached, but yeah, no sign of any new growths. We'll see what happens. The Dendrobium senile has progressed very well this year. Very pleased with the progress. This isn't one plant, I think it's 4 separate pieces, but that little piece at the top has pushed out 2 nice new growths. They're still growing obviously, and then the next piece along, another couple of new growths on there. This one down the bottom, that's pushed out new growths, and the main, what I would call the main plant, that's pushed out 1, 2, 3 new growths. So you know, this has almost doubled in size, and is still growing. The new growths are still growing, so there's still more time for that to get bigger before the season sort of closes off. Doing well, well pleased. Apparently this is a difficult plant to grow. I don't find it difficult, but it could just be that it's fussy on some of its conditions. This has chucked out loads of new roots, but most of them are buried in the moss and into the mount. But it has done a lot of roots. So nice plant, that one. There's a saying, we can't get it right all the time. This was the plant that Alberto sent me, and effectively it was a main plant with 2 kikis. Dendrobium tortili, I think it is. Yeah. And I took the kikis off because they had good roots and planted them near the base of the plant. And where the two kikis came off, the cane became severely infected very, very quickly. So my own fault for not perhaps dabbing a bit of cinnamon on, but that stump in the middle there is where that cane was, and that was the large cane. So that's gone now. So at the moment I'm relying on the possibility of some new growth from the base and the two kikis growing on. So yeah, great reduction in plant size there, but there are some good roots at the the base of the main plant, and the two kikis had good roots, so the plant's not lost. Just quite a large chunk of it. I mean, it was one of those, I could see it was soggy rot. It had to come off. And I did put cinnamon on the cut at the base. I took it down until it felt firm and then went down another inch into good tissue and then sealed the wound. So we'll see what happens to that in the future. Well, this is one of the big box dendrobiums that came from Beatrix. It wasn't looking that good, but it was still a viable plant. And I've got no tag on this one, and last time I did the no tag saga and promised to fix it, I didn't. But what I did do is get myself a pile of tags and my suitable pen next to the computer. So as I haven't got much else to do today, as I update my notes to say what I've watered, I've got an email from Beatrix identifying all the plants that didn't have tags. So I know what they are indirectly, they just haven't got a tag on them. So I can look up this one, find out what it is and put a tag on it. Perhaps. But what this one has done is grown. And it's pushed out quite a few nice new growths. Some of them would be classed as kikis because they are slightly away from the base, but close enough for the roots to get into the base. So that's put on a lot of new growth this year. I'm well pleased with that. If this one's going to bloom, it won't bloom on those growths, it will bloom on the older canes. But it's coming on well. Well pleased with that. That was in a bit of a sorry state when I got it, but it's pulled on really nicely. This is another one of the poorly dendrobiums that came out of the big box. Quite honestly, I've been looking at this going downhill because even the kikis have started to die on it. So I didn't have a lot of hope for this, but right at the base, there is now a new green shoot growing. So there may be hope for it, but it's a long way off being a good plant. And oh, this one has got a tag on it. Oh God, I saw my eyes won't focus, they're still all watery. Chrysocrepis. Come on, Roger, get your eyes together. Walking round half blind here at the moment. So anyway, I mean, there is some hope for that, but it is a very weak plant. Even though that looks like reasonable roots, it's not. Those are very old roots and they probably only provide a minimal amount of hydration. But with a new shoot, there's potential for new roots, and then, if that shoot grows on, that may be able to be recovered. It's another no tag dendrobium out of the big box, in a sorry state for some considerable time, but not beyond hope. The two kikis on it have now grown on really well, so I'm not actually going to water this today. I'm going to put this to one side and get those kikis taken off, seal the wounds and plant them up here. But the main plant has produced a new growth. Looking at the coloration on the kikis and the growth, this one's getting too much light. So I'm going to take him down and put him in a slightly shadier place. But that new growth has started some new roots. So, this is recovering well. The kikis have grown well and can now be separated and planted up here with the base to get a more established plant. So coming on, that one, whatever it is. Well, this is Dendrobium Bullenium, I believe. Bullenium, yes. This is still doing its upside down thing. This was in a pot and kept falling over. And it fell out. It was one of those times when it fell over for the last time, got stuck to one side, and I thought, you're going on a mount, mate, if you're going to produce canes that big. So apart from strapping it and trying to keep it upright, I thought, right, you can hang upside down. And then it sulked. I don't think the leaves on these canes are going to turn and face upwards. I think they're always going to face downwards, but it does eventually become deciduous, so those leaves will drop at some point. I seriously expect those mature canes down there to bloom, but that will probably be next year, and that will be its first time. But it has produced some new growths at the base, which is good, and those new growths are starting to produce a new root system. As I said, it sulked a bit when it was taken out of its pot. It didn't have the best roots, but it's replacing them at a rate of knots now. These growths are pushing on, so that one's coming on well. Blooms on that are stunning. I haven't seen them yet, but I've seen the pictures. I'm really looking forward to that. Now, these are 3 Cattleya types that came out of the big box, and I'm playing a little game with these. I don't know whether these are young plants, not far off seedling stage, or actually miniatures, and I'm not going to attempt to find out. I want a surprise, yeah? So I want to watch them grow on. I mean, if you take this one, this is Cattleya Little Lemon Drops crossed with Encyclia, spelt wrong, Vetulina. And latest new growth is bigger than anything else, yes? So it could be a young plant heading towards maturing. It could be a miniature and it's already mature, and that new growth could bloom. But I want the surprise, so I'm not looking them up. I just want to see their progress. I mean, that's grown a lot of roots, attached nicely to the mount, coming on nicely, you know. This one has got a name about 8 foot long, and half of the words on the tag are gone, so I'm not going to attempt to sort that one out. But again, to me that looks like a seedling, and it probably is, but it could be a miniature. It is in effect 2 plants. The central plant has got, has that got a new growth somewhere? I can't remember, or one of those is a new growth, and it's produced some nice roots. And over on the left, the larger piece is just a single piece that had no roots, and I didn't think it would grow, but it's produced a new growth at the base of it. So both pieces are active. So again, I want to wait and see. Is that a seedling or is it a miniature? Wait and see. And this is the last wait and see, one of the set of 3. This is Mary Chen crossed with Cattleya, how do you say that? Duvenii. And again, I have no idea whether that's a young plant, not far off a seedling, or a mature miniature. I have no idea. But it's grown, it's pushed out some new growths and established a good root system. And quite honestly, as a new plant, that's all you can ask for, is that it grows on. But a wait and see as far as blooms are concerned. Okay, I'll pull that one to a close and call that part 1, and I'll put the rest of the clips together as part 2 and post them another day. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.